My name is Kalen Vance. For 17 years, I served in the most classified division of the Kingdom of Darkness. My uniform was silence. My battlefield was the space between the notes. I was not a sorcerer. I was a sonic cartographer. An auditor of the invisible. My assignment was singular: to map the spiritual frequency of every piece of Christian worship music we could intercept and to render it harmless. Think of me as a spiritual sound engineer, but my mixing board was wired to the realm of principalities. I worked in a place we called the anechoic chamber. It was a room suspended within a room, walls lined with 7 layers of compressed ash gathered from the ruins of burned-down churches. No echo of God's presence could survive there. It was a vacuum, a spiritual death spot. In that room, we would play your songs. We would dissect them layer by layer, frequency by frequency. We categorized everything. We had filing cabinets, not metaphorical ones, real ones in the spiritual realm, with dossiers on thousands of songs. Most of them, the vast majority, were filed under what we called ambient noise. These were the songs with true lyrics, good theology, even beautiful melodies, but they carried no spiritual voltage. They were like beautifully painted cardboard guns. They looked like weapons. They felt like weapons in your hands, but they fired nothing. When you sang them, we saw the data. Your emotional centers would light up. You'd feel connection, nostalgia, even joy. But on our scopes, in the spirit, it registered as a faint, pleasant hum, a mood light. We encouraged these. We would even inspire worship leaders to write more of them. Because they kept you busy, they kept you feeling spiritual, while doing zero damage to our operations. Singing these songs was the spiritual equivalent of a child shouting bang bang with a pointed finger. We didn't even flinch. The second category was deterrent frequency. These were rarer. These songs had some spiritual mass to them. They carried a charge. They could disrupt a lower-level entity's focus, could cause a flicker in our surveillance systems. Imagine a flashlight shine directly into your eyes in a dark room. You'll turn away, you'll blink, you're distracted and uncomfortable, but you're still in the room. You just wait for the light to move. Many of your most popular, emotionally explosive anthems fell here. They have power. They can scatter a minor infestation, but they lack the final authoritative resonance to issue an eviction notice. They are a nuisance, not a threat. And then there was the third category, the rarest of all. In 17 years of daily analysis, I encountered only 4 songs that fit this classification. We called it terminal resonance. These songs were different. They were not written, they were transcribed. They did not originate in a musician's heart. They were downloaded from a courtroom in heaven. They did not carry a tune, they carried a verdict. Their melody was a legal frequency. Their chorus was a scrolling decree. When these songs were played, and this is the critical part, when they were played and agreed with by a heart operating in genuine childlike faith, they didn't ask us to leave. They didn't plead or bind or shout. They did something far more terrifying. They changed the spiritual legal code of the atmosphere in real time. They triggered what we classified as Code Viridia. I will never forget the first time I witnessed a Code Viridia event. I was 24, stationed in a regional command post we had established in an old opera house in Prague. The place was a monument to human glory and occult secrecy for over a century. The spiritual infrastructure was like poured concrete. You could feel the weight of it, a thick, arrogant silence that swallowed hope. I was on monitoring duty, watching the spiritual seismographs, when a blip appeared. A small prayer group, 7 people, had begun meeting in a janitor's storage closet in the basement. They were insignificant. A footnote: our sensors picked up their prayers. Standard stuff. Then they began to worship. The scopes showed a deterrent frequency pattern, mild agitation in the lower atmosphere. Then an older woman, maybe in her 60s, began to lead a song. It was a simple song, a somber song. Nothing like the victorious anthems we were trained to watch for. She sang a line, then she sang it again, and on the 3rd repetition she hit a specific interval, a minor 6th resolving to a pure 5th, with a clarity that seemed to bypass her physical vocal cords entirely. It was as if her voice became a conduit for a much larger sound. In the anechoic chamber, we had a main monitor. It didn't show sound as waves, it showed it as spiritual text. Most songs produced vague, shimmering glyphs. This produced lines of blazing ancient script, celestial language. A living document. The senior officer on duty, a being whose name would curdle your blood, had presided over the corruption of that place since the 1920s. He was looking at a tactical screen. The moment that script began to scroll, every light on his console went dark. Then they all flashed a solid emergency red. Not blinking. Solid. He did not turn to give orders. He did not initiate a counter-frequency protocol. He did not rally the forces. His head snapped toward the main monitor, and for the first time in my existence, I saw pure, undiluted fear on the face of a prince of that region. It wasn't anger. It was the terror of a spider seeing the flame of a blowtorch. He didn't shout. He screeched a single guttural command. Seal now! Code Viridia. Full, immediate, unconditional evacuation. Portals ripped open across the Opera House. Every entity, from the highest strategist to the lowest whispering MP, 143 of us, was sucked into emergency egress routes. The spiritual architecture of the place, the painstakingly built layers of oppression, began to crumble like ash in a windstorm. I was a junior analyst. My evacuation priority was low. I was one of the last to be pulled. As the vortex took me, I looked down, through the floors, into that basement closet. The woman was still singing, her eyes closed, tears cutting tracks through the dust on her cheeks. Her hands were open, raised slightly. She wasn't screaming at demons. She wasn't in a frenzy. She was in a state of profound, grievous agreement. She was signing her name on a heavenly document with her voice. And with that simple act, she had just undone 8 decades of concentrated darkness. The debriefing was a silent, shamed affair. We had lost a key stronghold, not to an army, not to a famous preacher, to 7 nobodies and 1 song. My punishment and my assignment was to spend the next 6 months in the anechoic chamber with a recording of that single event. My task was to break that song down to its atomic level, to understand what made it a weapon of terminal resonance. That song is the first one I will give you. But before I tell you its name, before I teach you its mechanism, you must understand the one non-negotiable component that turns a melody into a missile, a chorus into a canon. It is not the music theory. It is not the poetic quality of the lyric. It is not the skill of the singer. It is the bridge of agreement. In the physics of the spirit realm, sound is a carrier wave. It's the vehicle. Your belief, your genuine, unwavering, even if it kills me faith, is the encrypted signal on that wave. You can sing the most powerful terminal resonance song ever transcribed with a distracted heart, a doubtful mind, or an offended spirit, and it will produce nothing but ambient noise, a spiritual nullity, a dud. But when a human heart, forged in the fire of actual trial, rooted in the messy, stubborn soil of real faith, opens itself in agreement with the eternal truth embedded in that song's frequency, that is the moment of synergy. The sound from above meets the faith from below, and the collision forges what we call a sonic key. This key does not fiddle with a lock. It declares the lock to be a fiction. It does not argue with the darkness about its right to be there. It simply floods the zone with the legal reality of light, and darkness, by its very nature, has no choice but to comply. It is not defeated. It is rendered irrelevant. You have been taught to sing until you feel something. That is backward. You must sing until you declare something. The feeling is a byproduct, a shadow. The declaration is the substance, the weapon. I spent 17 years learning to hear the difference between the vibration of human emotion and the resonance of eternal decree. I can hear it in the attack of the first note, and I am going to train your ear to hear it too. The first song, the one from the Opera House, was filed in our archives as Project Lament Code Viridia Prime. In our tactical briefings, we referred to it by a more visceral name, the frequency of the blood covenant. Its opening melodic phrase is not catchy. It is not designed to be. It is built on one of the oldest surviving fragments of a Hebraic musical mode, a mode used for laments and for recounting covenant history. It is a heavy song, a sober song. It does not celebrate a victory you hope for. It enacts the legal basis for a victory already won 2,000 years ago. When sung from the bridge of agreement, its frequency performs one specific catastrophic function in the spiritual atmosphere. It projects the olfactory signature of the blood of Jesus. To you, that is a metaphor. To us, operating in the spirit, it is a sensory reality, a smell. And to a demon, that scent is the smell of their own obsolescence. It is the smell of canceled debt, of ripped up contracts, of shattered chains. It triggers a deep, protocol-level panic that overrides all other commands. The command becomes flee the scent. We had standing orders. If surveillance detected the genuine activation of this song's frequency during any gathering, all field operatives were to retreat to a minimum safe distance immediately. No engagement, no interference. Withdraw and contain the exposure. I will teach you this song. I will pinpoint for you the exact lyrical and melodic moment in its bridge where the sonic key turns and the lock springs open. I will tell you about a textile warehouse in Johannesburg where the night shift, 12 men and women who barely spoke the language of the song, sang it in broken, earnest agreement for 30 nights. And on the 31st morning, every single fetish object, every cursed token hidden in the ceiling panels by the previous owner, a man deeply involved in ritual magic, was found lying in the center of the floor, as if dropped by a fleeing hand. But first, you must do the most important thing. You must change your stance. You must move from the posture of a consumer to the posture of a commander. You are not selecting background music for your drive to work. You are loading a spiritual firearm with calibrated ammunition. Your voice is the firing pin. Your faith is the propellant. The song is the rifle barrel, engineered to direct all that force with pinpoint accuracy. If you are ready to step out of the concert hall and onto the battlefield, I need you to make your first declaration. Not with your voice yet, with your will. Type these words in the comments below. I am not a listener. I am a declarer. When you type that, you are changing your spiritual designation in the archives of hell. You are filing a notice with every monitoring demon assigned to your Spotify account, your church's worship team, your car's stereo, that your relationship to sound has been permanently altered. Your playlist is being decommissioned. Your war room is being activated. Do it now. You've declared your identity as armor. Good. Now understand the weapon. Project Unravel, the anthem of identity. This song on the surface seemed harmless to us. It spoke of being a child of God, of being loved, of being free. It used simple, almost childlike language. In our analysis, we initially categorized it as low-level ambient noise, spiritual self-help. We were wrong. We missed the mechanism because we were looking for artillery, and this song was a cloak. Its power isn't in attacking darkness, it's in redefining the light around the singer. The melody is built on a series of ascending fourths, an interval that in sacred music theory represents a confident upward progression, a claiming of higher ground. It doesn't fight, it ascends. And the lyrics, when spoken from the bridge of agreement, don't describe a hope. They issue a notification of change of address. The demonic kingdom operates largely on a system of legal accusation and identity theft. Our strategy is to whisper who you were, to magnify who you are not, and to shadow who you could be with who you fear you are. This song shreds that entire playbook. When you sing, I am who you say I am, with genuine agreement, you are not expressing a feeling, you are performing a spiritual transaction. You are trading the accumulated evidence of your failure for the forensic fact of your sonship. In that moment, you are not a sinner trying to be good. You are a son or daughter agreeing with your father's diagnosis, and that agreement emits a frequency of legitimacy that scrambles our accusatory signals. It's like pointing a sophisticated radar gun at a stealth fighter. The return signal shows nothing but a faint, confusing blur. We lose our target lock. The specific line, every doubt is silenced, is not a poetic line. It is a command issued to the spiritual realm. When sung from the place of agreement, it doesn't ask doubts to be quiet. It serves them a legal injunction, citing the superior testimony of heaven over the circumstantial evidence of earth. It declares the court of your own thoughts to be in recess and the supreme court of God's word to be in session. I witnessed this firsthand in the case of a teenager we'll call Daniel. He was a target for years, plagued by night terrors, anxiety, and a crushing sense of worthlessness. Our operatives had a field day, reinforcing every negative thought, twisting every minor failure into a prophecy of his destiny. A youth leader taught him this song, not as a sing-along, but as a weapon. He was instructed to stand before his mirror every morning, look into his own eyes, past the fear, past the shame, and sing that song. Not to feel it, to declare it. The first week, nothing changed. The second week, our operatives reported increased static around him. His spiritual signal was getting noisy. By the third week, the senior entity assigned to him filed a report that read, subject's identity markers are becoming unstable. Primary accusations are failing to adhere. Daniel kept singing. One night during a particularly intense assault of fear, he didn't pray, he didn't rebuke. He just began to whisper the words of that song over and over through gritted teeth. I am who you say I am. From my monitoring station, I watched the data. The spiritual pressure around him spiked, then began to fracture. The entity in his room, a specialist in shame, suddenly recoiled. It wasn't being bound. It was being rendered obsolete. It turned to its partner, and I heard it say through our comms, the narrative is corrupted. I cannot see him anymore. I only see the claim. And it left. Not in a dramatic showdown, but in a quiet retreat of irrelevance. Daniel's armor wasn't his defiance. It was his agreement with a truth that made the lies have nothing to attach to. This leads me to the third song, which operates on an entirely different axis. Songs 1 and 2 deal with legal reality and personal identity. Song 3 shatters the battlefield entirely. We called it Project Vortex, the portal of eternity. This song does not battle for your present or your past. It relocates your consciousness. Its frequency pulls the singer's spirit into contact with the eternal now. the vantage point of God's throne, where past, present, and future are one consummated reality. For us, locked in linear time, this is the most disorienting weapon in existence. We strategize across your timeline, we exploit regrets from your past and fears for your future. But if we cannot locate you firmly in your past or your future, if your spirit is momentarily anchored in the timeless reality where your victory is already complete, we lose all leverage. You become a ghost in the machine of time, and we cannot lay hold of you. This song's melody uses sustained, drone-like tones and cyclical, repeating phrases that mimic the eternal. It doesn't go anywhere, it is. And the key lyric is not a statement of fact, but a question of placement. Where would I be, but seated here with you? When sung from agreement, it is not a lyrical question. It is a spiritual GPS fix. It confirms your location, not on earth, but in the heavenly realms, seated with Christ. This declaration doesn't make demons flee a place. It makes you disappear from the battlefield they are fighting on, leaving them swinging at empty air and needs you to make the declaration that prepares you for this level of warfare. This is not about your home or your mind. This is about your position in the cosmos. Go to the comments and type this: I am seated in timeless victory. Do it now. This is you setting your coordinates. When you do, you are telling every power that uses time as you have declared your seat. Now understand the weapon of relocation. Project Vortex, the portal of eternity. This song is the most conceptually advanced of the four and in many ways the most devastating to hierarchical strategies. It does not contain a single warfare term. It speaks only of intimacy, of rest, of a perspective already achieved. Its genius is its passivity. It is a song of surrender, not to the enemy, but to a finished work so complete that struggle becomes obsolete. The melody avoids resolution. It circles. It hangs on suspended chords that create a sense of infinite anticipation already fulfilled. To the human ear, it can feel unresolved, even yearning. To the spiritual ear, trained on the grammar of conflict, this is incoherent. We are built to respond to declarations of war, to proclamations of binding, to the sharp frequencies of command. This song emits the frequency of a fait accompli, a thing already accomplished. It is the sound of a war being viewed from the rear-view mirror of eternity. This is why it unravels us. You cannot fight a battle that the other participant insists is already over. You can only look foolish, or you can leave. The mechanism is in the bridge, which is less a bridge and more a threshold. The lyrics shift from speaking about God to speaking from within the context of finished victory. From here I see the end from the beginning is not a hopeful statement, it is a positional report. When sung from the bridge of agreement, which for this song requires a willful abandonment of your timeline-based anxieties, the singer's spirit is momentarily aligned with the perspective of Ephesians 2:6. They are seated with Christ in heavenly places. From that vantage point, your addiction isn't a present struggle, it's a broken chain in the past. Your financial lack isn't a present fear, it's a provision already met in the future past tense of God's reality. The song creates a short circuit in the demonic feedback loop that depends on your belief in an ongoing battle. If you believe the war is still raging, you are a participant on the battlefield. If you believe and agree with the song's frequency that the war is won, you are a spectator from the victor's box. And we cannot touch you there. Our jurisdiction is the battlefield of time and doubt. The victory stand is sovereign territory. I saw this with a man named Elijah, bound to a generational cycle of addiction that had taken his father and grandfather. He was a sincere believer, but he fought his addiction as a present tense war, and in doing so he kept himself on the battlefield where the enemy's familiar tactics worked. A counselor told him to stop fighting the addiction and start singing this song. Specifically to sing it the moment the craving hit, not as a distraction, but as an act of relocation. The next time the wave of need came, instead of praying for strength, instead of rebuking the spirit of addiction, he put on headphones, lay on his floor, and sang this song. He sang, "I am where you are," through clenched teeth, not feeling it, but choosing it. From my side, monitoring the spiritual engagement, it was astonishing. The familiar spirits of addiction that had him surrounded, that were pressing in with memories and physiological triggers, suddenly halted, their data stream on him. His fear, his guilt, his physiological response went flat, not because he was resisting, but because his spiritual signature had shifted. He was still on the floor, but in the spirit, his agreed-upon identity was now anchored in the seated reality. The lead spirit turned, confused, and said to the others, "The target is not in the conflict zone. The link is broken." They didn't flee in terror. They dispersed in operational futility, like hunters whose prey has simply vanished from the forest. The craving didn't just lessen. It lost its spiritual engine and became a mere physiological ghost, which faded. Elijah's victory began when he stopped fighting on the timeline where the addiction existed and started singing from the timeline where it was already a footnote in his testimony. This brings us to the fourth and final song, the one that made my own defection inevitable. This is the song that moves from personal defense to cosmic offense. Songs 1 through 3 fortify you. Song 4 reclaims territory. We called it Project Reclamation, the Marching Orders. It is the only one of the four that is sung not about God, not about you, but to the territory itself. Its lyrics are imperatives directed at mountains, at walls, at spiritual climates. Its melody is not circular or lamenting. It is a relentless marching cadence. It doesn't ask God to come. It announces to the geographical location that he is already there as king, and therefore every other claim to ownership is null and void. This song doesn't make demons flee you, it expels them from the ground beneath your feet, because the song legally re-sanctifies the ground in real time. When sung by a group in agreement, it doesn't petition heaven, it brings the legal reality of heaven to bear on a specific set of GPS coordinates. This is the song that threatens the very concept of demonic strongholds. It turns a worship service into a special forces land grab operation. I need you to make the final declaration, the one that moves you from a fortified castle to a mobile army. This is where you stop just protecting your home and start reclaiming your street, your workplace, your city. Go to the comments right now and type this, "My voice carries marching orders." Do it. This is you being commissioned. When you type that, you are signing the operational order for your own life. And what I will tell you next about this song is the reason I'm speaking to you from hiding, the reason there are entities who would erase my existence to keep this knowledge contained. The bridge of this song contains a direct, note-for-note musical quotation from an ancient piece of Levitical music used at the dedication of Solomon's temple, the moment when the glory of God so filled the place that the priests could not stand to minister. That melodic fragment is a spiritual transponder code. When sung in agreement, it doesn't just ask for God's presence, it triggers a specific responsive protocol of divine occupation tied to that ancient pattern. It's like inputting the correct sequence to activate a dormant grid. The results are not emotional. They are geographical. Your voice now carries marching orders. You have moved from a defensive posture to an offensive one. This final weapon, Project Reclamation, the marching orders, is not a song for your quiet time. It is a song for your wartime. It is the anthem of invasion, sung not from fear, but from the absolute certainty of a deed already done in the courts of heaven, now being executed on the soil of earth. Its power is not in its volume, but in its specificity. It names things. It addresses spiritual mountains by the name of their manifestation, the mountain of addiction on your street, the mountain of strife in your family line, the mountain of poverty over your community. And it does not speak about them to God. It speaks to them as a commissioned agent of a higher government. The melody is a deliberate, plodding, unstoppable march. There is no flourish, no improvisation. It is the sonic equivalent of a bulldozer. Slow, heavy, and utterly indifferent to the rubble in its path. This indifference is its authority. It does not argue with the mountain's right to be there. It simply announces the mountain's removal as a foregone conclusion, and the music itself carries the vibrational frequency of tectonic plates shifting. The critical mechanism is embedded in what seems like a simple, repetitive chorus. Be removed, be cast into the sea. On its own, it is a command. But when this chorus is sung following the specific bridge, the bridge that contains the Levitical transponder code, the command is fused with the legal authority of the original temple dedication. It becomes more than a plea or a declaration, it becomes an enactment. You are not just a believer, shouting at a problem, you are a Levite, reactivating a centuries-old pattern of divine occupation over a new piece of ground. You are singing the dedication song of Solomon's temple over your apartment block, your office park, your local park where darkness gathers. And the spiritual principle is this: what was dedicated once in pattern can be dedicated again in substance. The song doesn't ask God to do something new. It aligns the present geography with an ancient blueprint of holiness, and in that alignment, everything that does not match the blueprint loses its legal standing. It isn't bound. It is simply evicted for being in violation of the new zoning laws of heaven. I witnessed the ultimate demonstration of this not in a church, but in a condemned housing project called the Briars. It was a place of profound despair, a nexus for violence and trafficking so potent it had its own spiritual gravity, pulling hope down and swallowing it whole. Our forces there were entrenched, proud. A small church on its periphery, maybe 50 people, felt called to not just serve there, but to reclaim it. They didn't organize a protest. They didn't just hand out food. For 40 nights at exactly 10 p.m., they would meet on the sidewalk at the property line, and for 20 minutes they would sing. They sang this one song. They sang it directly at the darkened windows, the broken streetlights, the very air. They sang the bridge with the ancient code, and they sang the commanding chorus with the chilling, quiet unison. For the first week, nothing changed physically. But our spiritual monitoring stations inside the Briars began reporting structural instability. The foundational spiritual covenants that gave the place its grim stability, covenants of violence, of abandonment, of fear, were being audited by a higher frequency. By the third week, the senior entity overseeing the district filed a panicked report. The territorial seal is being not just challenged but rewritten. The song is acting as a judicial review. On the 38th night, during their singing, a physical fight between two rival dealers in a courtyard suddenly stopped, not out of fear of police, but because, as one later said in confusion, the hate just left. A profound, unnatural silence fell over the entire block. On the 40th night, the church sang, and as they finished, every single member reported feeling a tangible click, like a spiritual lock turning. Within a month, a series of improbable events occurred. A major arrest ring was exposed by an anonymous tip. A long-dormant city renovation grant was suddenly approved, and a community coalition bought the property. The darkness didn't flee because people shouted at it. It fled because the very ground it was built on was legally transferred out from under its feet by a song that served as a title deed of light. This is the synthesis. This is where your training culminates. You now possess the 4-song protocol. This is not a playlist to shuffle. This is an operational sequence, each step building on the last. First, you establish the legal foundation with Song 1, the frequency of the blood covenant. You cleanse the atmosphere with the scent of finished work. You declare the bedrock reality upon which everything else stands. Second, you fortify your person with Song 2, the anthem of identity. You become invisible to accusation, a moving target cloaked in sonship. Third, you relocate your perspective with Song 3, the portal of eternity. You step off the battlefield of time and see your situation from the victory stand. And fourth, from that position of unassailable security and eternal perspective, you issue the marching orders with Song 4. You speak to the mountains from the mountain of Zion itself. You sing the future of a place into its present. This sequence is how a nobody with a cracked voice becomes the most dangerous person in any room, on any street, in any generation. It is how a sound becomes a sovereign act. I am revealing this because I was in the room when the data from the Briars came in. I saw the panic in the high command. I heard the orders to trace that church's worship leader for neutralization. And in that moment, a switch flipped in me. For 17 years, I had weaponized sound for the kingdom of fear. I saw its power to bind and blind. But in that data stream, I saw a greater power, the power of a few voices agreeing with a heavenly frequency, to unbind and illuminate not just souls, but actual dirt and concrete. I saw that the songs were not just defensive tools. They were the architecture of a new creation, sung into being one obedient note at a time. My defection was not emotional breakdown. It was a tactical surrender to the winning side. I looked at the weapons in my hand, my knowledge of frequencies, my understanding of spiritual acoustics, and I realized I had been studying the wrong side's blueprints. I had been analyzing the fortress walls while ignoring the cornerstone that could make them all into rubble. That cornerstone has a frequency, and you now know the first 4 notes, so sing them. But understand the cost. When you activate this protocol, you are not turning on a light in a dark room. You are declaring that the room itself is and always was light. The darkness was the intruder, the shadows were the lie, and your agreement with these songs is the eviction notice. Start tonight, in your room. Sing Song 1 until the air feels different. Sing Song 2 until you believe your own voice. Sing Song 3 until your worries seem small and distant. Then, and only then, stand at your window, look at your street, and sing Song 4. Sing it to the darkness outside, not in hate, in sovereign dismissal. Your voice carries marching orders now. See what and who obeys.